Welcome to the Education Corner, a podcast by Education Choices magazine.
Education Corner podcast would like to welcome Dr. Scott Crawford, Headmaster at Lancing College, Sussex. Set in 550 acres of the South Downs National Park, just 10 miles from Brighton and Hove, Lancing College is a co-educational boarding and day school for pupils aged 13 to 18 years old. With over 600 pupils, the vibrant school offers plenty of opportunity for fun and friendship, alongside a strong sense of community. In addition to academic excellence, inspiration, and enrichment for every pupil, Lancing College offers so much more, with over 120 different clubs and activities in its co-curricular programme. There is a vast array of possibilities to explore, enhance, and challenge the mind and body. Scott joined Lancing in 2025 and was previously Deputy Head of Magdalen College in Oxford since 2018. Before this, Scott also worked at Highgate School for several years as housemaster, head of biology, and head of science. What an impressive repertoire of schools. It's wonderful to have you with us, Scott.
I'm delighted to be here, Chloe.
And firstly, could you tell us about your background and how you came to your role at Lancing College?
Sure. Well, I grew up in rural Scotland, got to the age of 18 and knew that I wanted to run away. I think I had watched the ITV Brideshead series and thought that Oxford seemed like quite an attractive place to go. So I applied to Oxford to study biology, largely influenced by my biology teacher at school. I had a great time, wanted to do more biology, so I did a PhD in genetics. And during my PhD, I did a bit of teaching, a bit of undergraduate teaching and demonstrating, and thought that I could imagine a career in that. So I looked for some teaching jobs. I was fortunate to get the role at Highgate, where I spent nearly a decade. And at that time and in that school, I was able to explore a variety of different roles that you mentioned, and increasingly saw that having a position of responsibility in school gives you the chance to impact a wider variety of young people than you can do than being in the classroom alone. So that led me to the deputy headship. I had a whale of a time in Oxford at Magdalen College School, and didn't really know anything about Lancing other than it had a large chapel. So when I applied for the role, I was a bit sort of um, open, I guess, to what I might find. And the interview process was around 2 months. And during that time, grew towards the school and grew to really love it. So when I was in that final interview with all the governors, I really wanted the job. And now two terms in, I'm having again a whale of a time.
That's wonderful. And quite different schools as well, really. Highgate, through to Magdalen. Um, the college's website describes your aims and ethos as it prepares young men and women of vision and integrity who will be of service to their fellow human beings. Could you tell us more about what this means to you and how this ethos influences life at Lancing College?
Yeah. I mean, I think every school will tell you that they have a strong community, but it's really true here. You know, we're a boarding school. The vast majority of our staff live on site, and the glue that cements a community together is kindness and humility. And I see that in spades from the pupils here. And it's the one thing that I talk most about in chapel. We have a culture here of the young people being upstanders rather than bystanders. They will tell us if they spot something that isn't quite right. So there's a sense here of young people knowing what the right thing is for the greater good of the community and pursuing it. And that's something that I was told to expect. And I've really seen it, from this children in the third form all the way through to the upper sixth. And I think what grounds us here is our extraordinary chapel, that thing that I did know about. I'm looking at it now through the window behind my screen. It's the largest school chapel in the world. It is like having a cathedral in your school grounds. But it gives us a space where we can bring all 610 of our students together 3 times a week, where they can see each other, they can celebrate success and achievement, and have time to think about something greater than themselves. And that does percolate and influence how the children then act all the time here.
And it is so magnificent. I was there at Christmas for the carol concert. Equality, diversity, inclusion, and belonging are key parts of school and life beyond, with the world becoming increasingly global. The school website states we celebrate the diversity of our 40 plus different pupil and staff nationalities, representing many different social, familial, and cultural backgrounds. How do you embrace and promote this diversity and the values of EDIB at Lancing College?
The majority of our pupils are from the UK, but a third are international. And as you say, those international students represent 42 different countries, which is extraordinary. I mean, it's a genuinely cosmopolitan place and has the vibe of a sort of small university campus in some ways. The students themselves are really open to learning about each other's cultures. They do a lot through food, which is lovely. We had some of our students go into our kitchen and work with our catering team to make really good jollof rice, for example. On Sunday just gone, we were celebrating Chinese New Year in the dining hall, and hundreds of students gathered together to have a really good Chinese meal, but also to hear some Chinese music and to learn about Chinese culture from students. And it was just a genuinely positive thing. Um, it's about the sort of day-to-day cultural experience of the school is so embedded in recognizing that we are diverse. So there are some, I wouldn't say there are any great acts. It's lots of small ones. I'll give you a good example of that when we have our carol service in chapel at Christmas. The 9 lessons and carols. Uh, each of those lessons, um, the beginning and end is read by a pupil in using their own language. So the children get to hear a variety of different languages spoken, and to celebrate where those young people have come from. And that's a small thing, but it really is quite powerful. Um, and more broadly, I'm keen that the school is representative of society at large, and we are a fee-paying school, and it's important to me that we have children here who have accessed our education through a transformational bursary. And we've been doing a lot of work on this since around 2017. 50 students, current and past, have had 110% bursaries to be here, and by golly, they've really contributed to the school community in a whole host of ways, and have shared their perspective and background with the other students. So living diversity in all those different ways is one of the ways that we approach it.
And this edition, we're particularly looking at the benefits of boarding, different types of boarding that are available at different schools across the UK. And obviously, Lancing College, you have a very active boarding community. You offer full and flexi boarding options. And on your website, it states Lancing College has a long tradition of welcoming boarders and has adapted over the years to meet the changing lives and needs of our parents and pupils. How has boarding changed at Lancing College to meet these needs of modern families? And what do you see for the future of boarding at Lancing and perhaps even across the sector?
I mean, you're right. We operate as a full boarding school. We do have about 40% of our pupils who are day students, and the only real difference for them is that they don't have a bed. Although that's not always strictly true. If they're staying here later than 9 p.m. doing a school activity, then we'll find them a bed and they stay over. Um, but we are on a site here in Sussex, up on a hill, surrounded by beautiful South Downs countryside. But we are a collection of mid-19th century high Gothic Victorian buildings. And so we've invested quite a lot in our boarding accommodation to make sure that it is warm and inviting and light. So we've had a rolling program over the last sort of decade or so to make sure that our boarding facilities are up to what parents expect. And one of the changes, I guess, has been perhaps in the sixth form, we've moved to having more single and twin rooms in response to what pupils and families have asked of us. We're thinking a lot about how we can make our weekends as compelling and dynamic and busy as possible for the pupils, whilst also giving them some much needed downtime. But that's obviously a really important thing. One of the sort of structural changes that's happened in the last year with boarding is that we heard from some of our international families that they didn't necessarily want their children to go to their guardians during exeat weekends. So we now have an exeat provision where those students can choose to remain with Lancing members of staff during the exeat weekend, and we put on activities and visits and trips for them. And that's a bit of a structural change. But the rhythm of the boarding community is something that really sings here, and it just gives us time. And that's certainly something that I've seen moving from some day schools into boarding, is that spaciousness that you have in the week. With having longer days, the pace can come right down, and you can really spend time with young people, have those quiet conversations between students and trusted adults. And I think that does such a world of positivity to the students here.
And I've certainly felt it. I mean, I've visited many times, and the rooms and everything, they're so homely. I'd be happy to stay there myself. Lancing College has over 120 clubs and activities on offer for your students, covering a wide range of interests, including even things like Dungeons and Dragons, barista training, Japanese papercraft, as well as more typical sports, arts, and academic areas. Could you tell us more about the importance of this wide co-curricular offering and how it impacts your students?
Yeah, I couldn't quite believe that we had 120 different clubs and societies running each week, but we really do. It's extraordinary. I mean, we know that, children, when they're at school, have this wonderful opportunity more than at any other point in their life to try things out. And I guess what I'm interested in here is giving young people a chance to be surprised by something and to be surprised by themselves. And a lot of that can come through the co-curricular. I want the young people here to have a go at something they might not have expected or thought that they were going to be interested in, but then they did, and suddenly it's changed their entire perspective and might then influence what they want to do when they leave school. So it's using the co-curricular as a way of discovery. When I was doing my 2-month long interview process here, I had a tour, and one of the prefects who gave me that tour right at the end said to me that Lancing identified something in me which I didn't know myself. And I thought that was such a powerful thing to hear from a student. But it's largely a result of what happens not only in the classroom, but in the co-curricular, and giving children space to discover what really makes their heart sing. And it's such an important part of what we do. And I think one of our aims is to make sure that it is continuing to evolve and be as compelling as possible. And that if a young person wants something that we don't currently do, then what can we put in place to make it work? That's something that's important to all of us.
And partnerships and work in your community are important parts of Lancing College life, with students taking part in your outreach programme weekly. Could you tell us more about your partnerships and how you feel they benefit students at Lancing College, but also your wider community?
Sure. Yeah, it's really important to me that we aren't an island on a hill. And I want our students to get out off campus and into the local community, and also to bring the local community into school. And I think that's part of our duty to do that. We have lots of really interesting projects, and some of them are as a result of the site that we're in. So we have hundreds of acres, as you mentioned, and our farm, which we run, does a world of really interesting partnership projects with local SEND providers, where children come into Lansing, work with our students on our farm, looking at sustainability projects in the like. We have our students getting out into the community to work in care homes and to perform music to community groups, working in local churches and food banks and the like. So that sort of making the site porous with people coming and going in order to share their experience and to learn from each other is another key part of our educational offering, and something that parents are increasingly asking about when they visit. And it's something that I'm keen to grow more over the next few years.
And something that really Lansing have been working on for a very long time. I think I've been discussing it with you for a number of years now. You are a part of a family of schools, which includes the Lansing Prep Schools in Hove and Worthing, Little Lansing Nursery, and more recently Dorset House Prep School. How do all these schools and their pupils benefit from being part of this family, and how do students benefit from perhaps the nursery and prep schools and then progressing on to Lancing College?
Sure. We are a happy family, and a developing one. So the third of those prep schools you mentioned, Dorset House, which has boarding, was a school that joined the family in September of last year. So it's important to me that we get the best of each other, but we don't try and I guess sort of stifle the individuality of each school. It's important to me that the identity of Hove and Worthing and Dorset House are protected, but that we benefit from being part of a group. Part of that is about facility sharing and getting our prep school students up onto the college site so they can access our pool and theatre and sports fields and so on, and also some more specialist teaching. And it's important that for those children who would flourish here at the college, that we make their pathway from the prep skills to the college as smooth as possible. But I certainly want each of my prep skill heads to be advising parents about what's the right skill for their child. And I'd be delighted if that's Lansing College, but it might not be. And that's good prep education. We're also really committed to year 7 and 8 being in our prep schools. So we are a 13 plus entry here at the college. We think that elongating childhood further in our prep schools is the right thing to do, rather than to transition them here earlier. And that's working really well. There's also lots of staff movement between the schools, shared CPD. We gather together for our inset and to tackle sort of big educational questions together. And that sharing of expertise is much better in a larger group than being on your own.
Very much so, and I'm looking forward to seeing Sarah soon. Technology such as AI is obviously something, and we've got a number of features in this edition, and that's becoming increasingly prevalent in life, but also in school life, and will likely play a large role in the future careers of many of the children and students. How are you incorporating teaching and developing awareness around AI, using new and fast changing technologies at Lancing College?
Yeah, we've been thinking a lot about it, as you would expect, and we're trying to do that thinking not alone. one of the first things we did this academic year was to get a group of parents together from different sectors, to give their perspectives on how AI is affecting their workplace, and then to use that to help shape our response. We've also been seeking input from the students themselves to hear their concerns, worries, hopes around AI in the classroom. And my colleagues here have been going out further afield to sort of magpie best practice in other schools and universities and institutions. It's important for us that AI doesn't steal the struggle of what learning looks like. And it's really important here that the pupils still have opportunities to think hard, and AI is not being used as a shortcut to an easy answer. So we're teaching them absolutely about how to use tech well, to think about using AI prompts in the right way, and to what academic honesty looks like in this AI landscape. But you will just as much see pupils with their laptops shut, devices closed, and they're working on paper and they're working with each other to think really hard about the work that they're doing. And we will probably change some of our assessment approaches. We might see more Viva-based assessment of pupils away from, terminal test papers and the like, to really check that they understand what we've been covering. It's also something that is going to change again in a few months and again further down the line, but it's not going to go anywhere. I think our job is to make sure that we are helping the students as much as we can with their honest use of this technology in a way which doesn't pervert what it means to be a learner. And that's the sort of direction that we're going in.
And when your students leave Lancing College, they go on to many top universities, not only in the UK, but worldwide, including Russell Group universities and Ivy League universities, um, many universities in Europe. How do you prepare your students for this next step and support them to thrive beyond Lancing College?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely right that you've pointed out the range of destinations for our leavers, both here in the UK and further afield. Uh, Effectively, for us, it boils down to individual choice, individual support. And one of the tools that we have here at Lancing, which is largely a result of our size, is that we have one-to-one tutoring. And in the sixth form, the young people get to choose who from the teaching body their tutor will be. And that tutor will meet with them once a week for at least 30 minutes. And as they move through the sixth form, those conversations are increasingly focused on next steps, university application, and that tutor then being the person who will signpost to them other people in the school who can give them really tailored support for what they want to do. We've added a dedicated international universities coordinator who will be there to help them through some of the mechanics of international applications. We have dedicated pathways and programs for medicine and engineering and law, and increasingly architecture and art. But there's a lot of one-to-one guided advice here, and there really has to be because of the breadth of what our young people are going on to do. And of course, it doesn't stop when they leave. The OL network will continue to provide our young people with careers guidance long after they've left this place, and that's increasingly going to be important, I think, too.
And the OL network, I know I've spent a lot of time talking about it to you before, but it really is a very powerful tool, isn't it, for the students?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're thinking about running more sort of networking events, moving away perhaps from what schools did traditionally, where they would get their alumni together for long dinners in the evening. We're seeing that some of our younger graduates, they don't really want that. They want to have a focused, 1 hour breakfast meeting in London to talk about a particular topic. And if we can get our students along to those events to learn from young people who are finding their way through this ever-changing career landscape, that will be a positive thing. But we have thousands of our OLs who are absolutely committed and open to supporting the next generation of young people as they find their place.
And finally, obviously, it's early doors. You're finding your feet. Um, but what are your hopes and plans looking forwards for the future of Lancing College?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing that classic thing I think of what new heads do of taking time to understand the school, take the temperature and listen. But fundamentally, Chloe, I want Lancing to be the boarding school of choice in the South Coast, and for parents to have Lancing in their minds when they're weighing up the options for their son or daughter. On a practical point, I'm leading a conversation with colleagues about the curriculum and evolving the curriculum over the next few years to make it more responsive and more appropriate for where we are heading, and that's really exciting. Making boarding and our Saturday and Sunday provision as compelling as possible is a key aim, and doing everything that I can to recruit and retain the best teachers to deliver this. That's a top priority.
Thank you so much, Scott, and I very much look forward to coming and seeing you all soon.
Thank you very much.